All right. I'm gonna check to see, make sure we're live. Excellent. Get over to. All right. All right. There we go. So they should be starting here shortly. Hopefully, hopefully they'll have the audio will come through for them. If it doesn't, someone let me know, please, and I'll try to fix it. I'm refreshing my Twitch stream.
With your feet on the air and your head on the ground.
So I guess we're getting an ad. Hopefully it's turn this down just a bit.
Thank you.
Yay, ads. There we go. Starting soon. I hear music. What's up, Casey?
Hello and welcome to the Warhammer preview, coming live to you
All
from
right, here we go.
Adepticon 2023. I am Eddie and I'm joined today by Mike, and we have got so much cool Warhammer to show you.
I am so excited to share it again, and it has been such an energizing evening. Adepticon is one of those founding events of the independent scene. It's one of the largest Warhammer events in the world. It is run by a passionate group of volunteers and folks who just love everything that is Warhammer, and we get to see over 1,000 of them in the room here and share everything we're about to go through with everyone on the line. I'm buzzing at the chance to get to do it again.
It was really, really fun. So we've just had the preview for the people at the event. We had, as you say, 1,000 people, 1,000 Warhammer fans.
1,100.
1,100 and some other people kind of around the edges. Really, really cool. Some awesome stuff we get to show off. And we get to show you guys who are watching along on the stream all that stuff in just a few minutes. I can see there's about 30,000 of you currently tuned in to watch us.
Given the fact that it's like 3 a.m. in some of our core demographic here of this for this show.
Absolutely, yeah. So do let us know where you're tuning in from, guys. It's about, I think, 3 or 4 in the morning over in the UK. It's still pretty late over here in the US as well.
It's pretty late in the US. We're here at Central Time. It's already past 10. Eddie here is probably still getting over the jet lag. You were in the UK just yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we had an interesting flight over. It was not without incident, but it's all good. We're here now.
Visited many cities on your way to Chicago.
Yes.
You see in the chat, we've got loads of people. It's going flying by so fast. We've got the UK. There's some people.
Stop talking. Show us stuff.
Europe, China, all sorts of places. So the Shire I see in there as well. So thanks for tuning in.
The Shire.
A really, really cool show. We've got loads of really fun stuff. I'm excited to share it. If you guys have got any theories or any things you're particularly looking forward to seeing, let us know in the chat. Some of them might come true.
Indeed, and see what you can get out of us in the chat, because there's all sorts of things we can talk about over the next bit here.
Yeah, we might be able to answer some questions. The chat is going so fast at the moment.
It's just wild guesses.
I might not be able to see your question, but
fine.
we'll do our best. If any kind of repeat questions are popping up, we might be able to cover them as well. So, Mike, before we dive in, Adepticon, obviously a huge part of the event scene.
An inspirational part of the scene, frankly.
For Warhammer. You are Mr. Events for Warhammer.
I am.
So tell us what Adepticon means to you.
Well, so all of us who...
So we're going to talk for 20 minutes before they show us anything. Hopefully not. Yeah, so much talking.
Warhammer when it comes to engaging with the community in person.
Just let me know, guys, if we're having any issues with the stream or if the volume needs to come up or anything like that while they're just chitty-chatting. I wanna make sure that buy some time for technical to prime and load the websites and socials. Yeah. Alric says, I hope they make a lot of bad line references and puns. Yeah, that would be good. I'd be good with that. I want to make sure, guys, when we look at this stream on my end. All right, nice volume increases. I can do that, Steve.
And if you've never made the journey yourself to the Mecca that is Adepticon, make it one year. Come say hi to us. Eddie and I will be on stage. I'm sure.
You'll end up drunk.
Nice. All about the latest reveals, and I think it's getting close to the time that we should probably...
I think we should probably show them some stuff.
Absolutely.
All the good people have tuned in. It's stupid o'clock in the morning some places, so we should probably let them see some cool things. And we've got a pretty good one to open. Should we roll the first video?
I suppose we probably should.
The state of the galaxy, the Dark Angels, the Arcs of Omen series has led to the brink.
Here we go.
Abaddon has sent out the Arcs of Omen, Vashtor the Archifane is now at large, and Angron is on a rampage, and there's perhaps one character in the entire galaxy who could stand against Angron. That's the line.
Wow.
Johnson is the Primarch of the Dark Angels, formerly the Dark Angels Legion, and now he is the returned Primarch of the Dark Angels chapter. Returning Primarchs are a big deal. The return of Rabute Gilliman, that was an era-defining moment for the inhabitants of the 41st millennium and for fans of the 41st millennium.
He looks old as hell.
And very often,
it's a dope mini, though.
Second opportunity in my lifetime, certainly, to see a living Primarch return.
He's been deep in the rock for thousands of years. All is lost to chaos. But this is where the lion appears. And this is where he makes a stand as a light in the dark, as a knight standing alone.
He grew up as a feral youth on a forested world full of monsters and then taken in by knights.
Yeah, the shield is dope. The pose is dope. His armor is awesome. He looks great. He looks like Tywin Lannister, which I guess kind of makes sense.
Going to reunite, you'd imagine, with the Dark Angels chapter, and woe betide anybody who finds themselves on the other side of the battlefield from there.
Man, they didn't make a single chaos joke. I can't believe it. Hopefully he has a helmet, because that head is he looks like a old man. Like, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn, you damn chaos punks. 10,000 years of vengeance. So the mini's dope. I hope he has a helmet because he'll look much cooler with a helmet.
The Lion has returned. A brand new Primarch has returned to Warhammer 40,000.
A Lannister always
Reveal.
pays his debts.
Some
Yeah,
of you predicted
exactly.
it, some of you saw it coming.
Just a few.
Just a few, you know.
And is he brand new or is he brand old? I can't tell. He's
He
been
is,
around.
so
for
he is pretty
a bit.
old. So we saw
He's
some of the people
definitely old.
commenting that he looked
Brand
quite
old.
He is 10,000 years old.
He
so,
is. He
you know,
hasn't been sitting
let's-
comfortably in stasis for 10,000
Yeah,
years. as
it's
it were.
probably on like a stone slab as well.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't sound
He
like
looks
that.
like he lives in the villages in Florida. Red
fair enough. Well,
Corvette.
so let's have a look at the miniature
That's
then.
totally. He's
Got
gonna
some
roll up
shots
in
of
his
it. Absolutely
his red Corvette.
phenomenal miniature. Early contender, I think, for miniature of the year. One of the most anticipated Warhammer models I think we've ever.
Oh yeah,
had
he's
played on Reveal
definitely
on
much
one of the
better
live
than
streams. Every inch
robust
of this
Gilligan.
model is just dripping with detail and iconography and just the raw, cool, gothic aesthetic of the Dark Angels.
It's
Please,
been difficult for me to
please give us
to
a
even fathom how
a
it
helmet.
got to the point that it was designed in the way that it is because it's stunning. Nothing that I could have expected was actually fulfilled with it because it was so much better than what I was imagining. And I gotta tell you, it was one of the better kept secrets of the studio. I could not see it myself until I think a couple days ago. So it's been amazing to see the community get excited and make all the wild calls and whatnot. And of course, there was a video of a lion earlier today.
Yeah. Could have been about anything, who knows.
Who knows?
So loads of really lovely details to talk about on this miniature. So we'll go through some of the highlights. So
The sword is
got a
sweet.
Sword. He's got a brand new sword. So
Not as cool as
this is not
the sword of the High
Lion
Marshal.
sword is still with Cypher around the Galaxy Subway. At some point, maybe they'll meet again, but it's not this day. But he has another blade.
It
which
is
more
not this
capable of
day.
cleaving monsters and
The
armors.
best kept secret.
He's accompanied by two Watchers in the dark.
Yeah, with the
These are
Watchers.
kind of shadowy forms.
Well,
Follow
you know,
the Dark
regarding the
Angels
Watchers,
around, and there's no more significant character than
every
the Lion himself,
every
and they kind of
great
whisper to him in the dark
miniature
that
has its
where he might best put his service
secondhand
over
imitation,
there
and
against the forces of chaos.
that's pretty much
Very
this
good.
because nobody beats the Servitor
He
wiping
does.
the
He
sword
carries
off.
Emperor's shield.
Well,
It's a
the
glorious
dude
gold
is
Primarch
like
shield carried by the Emperor,
like
and
the
now
blade
carried
is
by
still
his
in the
son,
body
much
of the
the same
orc.
way
Like
that
nothing is
Gallowfall
more
was the
hilariously
sword,
40k than that.
the Emperor possibly gifted or maybe inherited the shield of the Emperor. So when he's fighting against the horrors of the galaxy, he can use the Emperor's shield to deflect the deadly blows that might
It
even
is a
lay
dope
someone
shield.
like him low. Other details on him there, you can see that the details
At least he
on
doesn't
the
have a
armor
dumb,
are effectively scaled up
impossibly
more
bullpup
ornate and
gun.
elaborate versions of Space Marine
like
power armor. So
like Azrael does.
definitely still fundamentally a Space
So-
Marine, right? He's a leader of a Space Marine Legion, and all the iconography of the Dark Angels in some capacity is kind of incorporated.
Second
into-
Primarch that
into
got
the armor.
Xenos help on
So-
revival.
What's
I
fascinating
mean,
with the paint job as well is that he's clearly got that green element of the Dark Angels, but there's sort of that original, sort of darker hue to the main armor plates as well going on in the way that it's been put together.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly interpret that armor as being black armor
yeah,
with a slightly blue
the
tinge to
sculpt's
it.
great. I love everything about it except his head.
Obviously, the green of,
His
the Dark
backpack
Angels
vent cover
comes from
things are a
Forest of
little
Caliban. That's where that
weird,
green
I guess,
colour
but I
scheme
mean,
comes
like they were going for like
from.
an
Black,
angel-esque
that's kind
theme.
of
It's
their
not
original
bad.
First Legion colour. So the green of the Dark
But
Angels Legion
I
is
do
incorporated
really
when the
like
Lion
the
joins, basically. So, it's a
the
nice
pose,
contrast
the
to
shield. I mean, everything about him is dope. He's like super knightly.
Another shot of some more
So,
close-ups. So, this
oh
is
look,
a
he's
much
got
more
4
detailed
heads.
about
All
the
right,
kit,
there you
so
go.
about the kit, but there's so much cool stuff. But one of the
There
cool
you
things
go.
about it is that there are 4 different head options for the Lion. So
Well,
you can sort of choose.
We're gonna
how
throw
you
away
want
the
your
ball,
Lion
the
to
unhooded
represent,
head.
on
Even
the
the hooded
battlefield.
head is
So you
cool.
can have your
The hooded head
helmeted
gives
so
me
you have there as the general of his forces bellowing commands to his legion.
it gives me
You can
vibes
have
from
the kind of hooded option either with helmet or without to have a much more
Game of Thrones
mysterious,
too.
warrior
The
knight
knight,
sort of vibe.
Sir
One of the
Barrister,
secrets of the
I think is his
Dark
name.
Angels
Or you
themselves
can
was
go
like
kind of
that.
full-on lion helm and have the winged helmet.
No, that
the
is
helmet,
Black Sword. That is not the
the
sword that
ornaments
Cypher
with
was
the
carrying.
angels
Cypher
over the
still
ears.
has that sword. This is a
kind of
new sword, they
absolute
said.
icon of the Dark Angels, writ in the
So
helmet
yeah, the helmet
of their program.
is
Some really cool options.
the helmet is
Lion
dope.
is
I
a
love
complete
both
different character,
helmeted
right? So
options. The
he's
big
got a
huge
really
wings
interesting
are great
relationship with the
looking.
Imperium, with his own chapter,
The hooded helmet is
with,
also really dope.
His commanders under him. So he is this kind of multifaceted, interesting personality, and you can
His
kind
armor
of
should be
choose which
black.
ones you'd like
I
which ones
mean,
you associate with and
it's
the model to fit.
You're already
it's
hinting at
honestly
things
pretty
that are questions
dark.
probably even I
Like
have
it
about
could
the
almost
sword
be like a
itself.
dark
What is
greenish
going on
black.
with the lion in the current?
Yeah,
Wolf
so
Ritual
so this model comes out alongside Arcs of Omen Book 5, which is the culmination of the Arcs of Omen series. The book is called Arcs
Yeah.
of Omen: The Lion,
Helmet
and
options
it will
are dope.
chronicle the finale
Four heads
of
is
the
great.
story
I
of
mean,
Arcs of
great
Omen,
job.
which will
Thanks,
see
thanks
a
GW
huge
once again
showdown
coming out with multiple
between
head
the forces
options
of
is
chaos and the
really
forces of
good.
the Imperium. The
You know, they
Imperial
did that
side
for
will
Helbrecht.
have the Lion alongside
Um,
some of the
3
Dark
head
Angels
options for
from the
him,
chapter
4 heads for this
and some of
guy.
their successors,
I like
and
it.
you'll have Dante, and you'll have some Blood Angels. So some of the angels, basically the angels of darkness, will stand against the forces of chaos. On the chaos side, you've got Abaddon, you've got Vashtor, you've got Angron.
Did he just say that
so
Angels of
it's going to be a
Darkness will
huge
stand
showdown
against
between them. Um,
the forces of
so on the
darkness?
screen right now, you can
Like,
see
come
kind
on.
of how the Lion scales up against some of the other key models that you'll see him alongside. So they're against an Intercessor, so you can see quite a
He
lot
is the
bigger
traitor,
than a
yeah.
standard Space Marine. And against Reboot Gulliman, he's the same scale. So he is a Primarch, they are brothers. Neither of them was known to be particularly larger than their brothers, so they are pretty much the same size. They're standard Primarch.
Everyday run-of-the-mill Primarch that you
Absolutely.
see around the
Well,
corner on
he's
the usual
original and
Saturday
best,
mornings.
some would say, for the Lion.
Indeed, it's
Yeah.
true. His rock looks a little less tactical.
If anyone is going to stand on a rock,
Tactical
it's going
rock.
to be the Lion.
It does
Yeah,
seem like
he does.
it's
Why didn't he
it's
have?
kind of
They
a
missed
gem.
opportunity here for the biggest tactical rock
Hey,
ever.
never without a good pun when it's needed.
I know,
So
right?
this is the artwork that comes on the cover of Arcs of Omen Book 5, and you get a kind of close up on the Lion there. You can see that he has aged basically. So as far as the narrative, the timeline is concerned, Gulliman has been in stasis for most of the last 10,000 years. So when he comes out, fresh-faced, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, maybe only a few centuries old, the Lion has literally been alive for all 10,000 years. So that's what a Primarch looks like.
Just a very long nap.
It's a really, really long cat nap indeed.
Well, he does have that effect in the miniature as well. It's one of the things we saw people commenting on. He looks older, and the reality is, for those who didn't pick it up earlier, he is indeed quite a bit older.
He's pretty old. Yeah, he's pretty old. But he does that kind of like ancient.
He's got that get off my
venerable
lawn
veteran
look.
knight-errant sort of thing. So you can imagine that kind of character, and this is what happens in the Arcs of Omen. Basically, is that he is wandering through the Imperium Nihilus, taking on monster hunting, basically, like picking up where he left off when he was a Knight of Caliban.
His primary calling.
Yeah, wandering out into the dark forests to take down the monsters that haunt the darkness.
And we saw that in his quote, his focus being on teaching them to fear the darkness in which they dwell.
Yeah. Here he is alongside
there's a
Dark
scale.
Angel's army, and you can kind of see how he scales versus some of the other units. So you know he looks pretty
He's
cool.
bigger.
Redemptor dreadnoughts and
He's not
Intercessor units,
like
tanks.
super tall,
And
which
his
is
iconography in
scales
Console
well
is
with
kind of a
Guy
lot of
Lehman, I
all
guess.
of the bits of the Dark Angels. So if you want to paint him, you could certainly add some bone color, some black color, some green.
That's entirely
and
too much
the
green
absolute
for a
center
Dark
of the
Angels
green
army.
complexion.
Like,
Did you mention
where
Sigmar
are all the
also has
Terminators?
all the different various guest authors painted.
Does he have
I think this is
transhuman?
gonna be a painted
That's
choice, I think.
that's
It's gonna be
the real
very,
question
very
that I
cool.
want to know. Is he gonna have transhuman?
Here's some shots from Arcs of
Surely
Omen
he
Book
will have
5.
some
So
ridiculous
you can
buff,
see here
I'm
the
sure.
Dark Angels and the Blood Angels fighting against the forces of first of Chaos, but demons of Nurgle in this instance.
The Demons of
One of the
Nurgle.
things that there's some really, really cool stories in the last episode of the Arcs of Omen. So I don't want to spoil it because it's got some absolute huge twists and turns. Even for those who've followed Warhammer 40,000 for a long time, there's some really nice payoffs to some very, very long-running arcs.
It is all I can do not to try and prod you to tell them more about it, because Eddie's given me a bit of a rundown, and it's been hard for me to not just want to kibitz about it with every single Warhammer fan that I can come across right now.
It's very, very cool. So if you like the lore and the narrative of Warhammer 40,000, if you've been following it for a long time, if you're a fan of the First Legion, which I am, I've got a Fallen Angels collection myself.
Traders.
So you know, I've got mixed feelings about the Lion, but he
Stormin Norman says,
I can't lie.
who's the next Primarch?
We do. We've got
Hopefully
we've
it's
got the Lion.
Dorn.
Just talk about the Lion for the next hour, I think.
The last thing, though, to say about this is
I
that
suppose.
in the Arcs of Omen Book 5, the Lion will fight Angron. So we have a situation, 2 brand new miniatures, 2 new Primarchs, both returned to the 41st millennium. They will have a showdown.
He will have a showdown. What a complete waste of a book if they're going to have a showdown, because we all know that there's going to be absolutely no resolution to that, because otherwise then they will have to kill off one of their main characters, which they're not going to do. So absolutely pointless for them to do that, unless he kills Unless he kills,
Right, but that's not it. We've got
No,
more stuff to show
there's
you.
more. It's
what's
only
his
one
name?
model. In fact,
Angron,
we'll
and
be showing you
Angron,
the
like, you know, I guess
biggest
can
Warhammer
just
Reveal
come back or
ever.
whatever. So maybe
In
that'll
terms of the
happen.
amount of stuff.
But we
Yeah,
know the
just
Lion's not
wouldn't
gonna
be that
lose.
justice if we didn't
So
deserve the same treatment.
So we are leaving 41st Millennium for a little bit, and we are going to jump into the mortal. Oh, it's heresy first. So we are going to jump to the Horus heresy.
heresy.
Yeah, let's roll video.
Let's see what we've got.
I'm Andy Hall. I work on the Horus Heresy team in the Warhammer studio. The setting for the Siege of Cathonia book is the planet of Cathonia itself, which is the homeworld of the Sons of Horus. It's actually the homeworld of the War Master Horus. As the War Master's fleets were advancing on Terra, a small detachment, calling themselves the True Sons of Cathonia, decide to peel away from the fleet and retake Cathonia in the interests of the honour of their culture. So the book opens up with a really big, extensive narrative of the actual Cathonia campaign itself. Then we go into a section that sums up what all of the big factions within the Horus Heresy are doing at this point in the war. We also have some new core scenarios for the game. So if you wish to play through the events described in the narrative, you've got some special scenarios that are themed around the Siege of Cathonia. We gave people a basic way of doing Zone Mortalis games in White Dwarf when the new edition came out, and this takes that and expands it into a full system. So full Zone Mortalis.
So, not to interrupt this lovely Horus Heresy thing that we as Black Templar players don't really care much about, but in the chat over here on the Twitch stream, I saw someone post that I wonder if they'll bring Horus back in 40k. Tell me you don't know anything about 40k without telling me you don't know anything about 40k. No, he dead. He gone. He not coming back. That was a cool animation there, but if you guys know me, I really have pretty much no interest in Horus Heresy. I hate that rule set. 7th edition was an awful dark time of 40k, and I have no desire to go back to it. Does anyone actually buy the campaign books? As far as Horus Heresy, I'm sure they probably do. Those people are fanatics.
So that is a brand new narrative expansion book for the Horus Heresy.
Black books are back.
Yeah, so one of the things that was a huge hit with the first edition of the Horus Heresy were the black books. That was basically the main way that you engaged with the game, and they had loads of really rich lore and background and maps and all sorts of really cool stuff. And it's been a year since we've had...
It's been one of the biggest questions we see on a regular basis is when are the big black campaign books coming back for the Horus Heresy? And
yeah, so this book is the first of that ilk, and it's absolutely jam-packed with stuff. We heard from Andy Hoare there a few of the details about what's going to be in it. So there will be brand new miniatures, obviously accompanying the new campaign book. But maybe more excitingly, actually, is that this brings new ways to play. So there is a full Zone Mortalis set of rules. Okay. That's a hugely popular way to play Horus Heresy. Yep. Obviously, loads of the best bits of...
no, I don't think he got a clone, Misfits, that I'm aware of, because Abaddon is the new War Master, so he's truly dead and gone as far as I'm aware.
New miniatures, alongside lots of other new miniatures that these new campaign books herald. So it's a really exciting time for the Horus Heresy. It's like the next step. We've had the edition, we've had the kind of base level, and now this is diving into the detail.
It's pretty exciting to hear Andy talk about it as well. Even when he's not on a recording, there's a certain driving passion that exists there for Warhammer and for the brand and for the game that it is sort of hard to rival, and it's magical to see amongst the folks who are actually designing and building the product. And also to hear him talk about it as, in his own words, inside of our regular meetings, a historical war game in a sense, and that we view the heresy itself as a historical moment in the history of Warhammer.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting thing about the Horus Heresy, which is that when people get really into it, they want like authenticity, right? So like people tend to go, I want this bit of the lore. I read this story, it was really cool. I want the faction, the specific company or chapter that took part in that battle. And these campaign books
Well,
basically go, here is a
this
bunch
is
of
all
really cool
lovely and
stuff
good,
that happened
GW, but
in each of
let's
those
get to the
moments,
meat
each
and
of those
potatoes
battles.
here.
They kind of
Show
represent
us,
this.
show us some more
Attack
40k
group,
stuff,
or I
huh?
want that drop force, or I want that assault company, or
Specifically.
this one. Yeah, yeah.
Well, which would you be?
And
Would you be a son of Horus or an Imperial Fist in this particular?
Oh,
one?
wait, so in this one, I think the Imperial Fists are pretty cool. Right?
I mean, I'm a big fan of Imperial
Yeah.
Fists. Also, they're sort of like a little bit of a flex when
But
you're
then
painting a
the
beautiful
Sons
yellow
of I mean,
forest,
it
right?
is Horus's heresy, right? It's his game, so
It's his game. Wait, so he has enough spotlight. We can.
he has, yeah, that's fair.
So one of the other things too is if you ever happen to see some photos, if you're ever at one of the events we're at, we actually have a 64 square foot Horus Heresy Istvan Massacre battlefield with hundreds, if not 1,000, I think at this point, miniatures recreating the whole experience and some of the like scene for scene, shot for shot pieces
Pretty
of
cool.
cover art from the Heresy.
That's
I'm
actually
kind of
pretty
a
cool.
big old Heresy historical nerd
Nice.
myself.
I'd
Well,
love
it's
to.
exciting
I'd love to see that.
I'm going to change my answer actually because I just remembered a cool thing about this book that we haven't talked about.
Now
yet.
you're not going to
So,
be Imperial.
so
Fist
one
fan.
of one of the things that these books do is they give you a bit more of the kind of rich tapestry of the heresy. And what we know is that some of the legions and chapters didn't fall completely, or they had loyalist elements in them. So one of the things that's quite interesting in this book is that you get some loyalist elements of the Thousand Sons Legion join alongside the Imperial Fist for the invasion. So
Really?
yeah. So I'm going to pick them. So I like the Thousand Sons.
So
They're like one of my choices.
You're a fan of the small
So-
contingent of loyalist Thousand
that's
Sons.
exactly it. I'm
all right.
a fan of those.
That's
Yeah.
a deep cut. One that's also
Absolutely,
quite a sneak peek
absolutely.
for those who are paying
Yeah.
attention.
Cool. Okay, so that's Horus Heresy. Really cool. This book is going to be accompanied by loads and loads of new stuff. Dome Mortalis rules, brand new miniatures, all sorts of cool things. We are now going to jump to the Mortal Realms. where something
Age of
instantly
Sigmar. That's
prehistoric
right, of course.
It's a good cut to jump from the immortal legions of the Space Marines, many of whom die constantly in the Horus Heresy, into the mortal realms of the Age of Sigmar.
Flawless segue.
Dinosaurs. Not gonna lie, those are pretty cool. Seraphon are coming. So, glad for them. I don't really play Age of Sigmar all that much.
So that is
I do have a
the
couple
rest
armies for it,
of,
but
Seraphon
unfortunately,
forces. We always
I don't
see
have anybody to
some
play with,
models,
so.
on their way at some
Um,
previous previews.
But yeah,
this
it's
is the rest of the range, and effectively
pretty
the
cool,
Seraphon are now fleshed out to be one of the best-looking armies in Age of Sigmar.
I
in my
feel
opinion.
like it's
pretty cool that they're getting some new nice minis.
Talk about how much a bunch of clever girls these particular models are. I am excited about this. As someone who is relatively new to Age of Sigmar, this is the army that got me into it.
Yeah,
People
format. I've said
and
this
I
more than once.
know
If they
exactly
made like
what
some
Age
kind of
means for my
Dino
army.
Riders
Maybe not for you, but
ripoff,
getting that part
I
is
would
exciting
not
because
mind at
Age of
all. That
Sigmar.
would be
So Elizabeth
dope.
was my first army when I started playing Warhammer.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I've got a definite soft spot for
Kindred
these guys.
spirits there.
Absolutely. So these are incredible models. So this is the Agrodon Lancer unit you can see on screen at the moment. This effectively replaces the Cauldron Riders that we currently have in the Lizardman range. They are significantly bigger than the current heavy cavalry of the Seraphon. This is a very, very hard-hitting unit. They are elite Saurus riding on the back of fairly large, angry reptilian cavalry. They are a grinding
They look
force
like-
in close combat.
Are they
So,
reptilian or are they more like avian?
beefy.
so that they are
Velociraptors,
effectively the
honestly.
dreams of frogs from another dimension. So I think the evolutionary tree probably doesn't really apply.
That's a really
fully.
good point.
Um,
Dinosaur monster heroes from space.
Absolutely, but the models are incredible. I think
Just gonna
if
be
you want
blasted
paint,
by a dumb meteor.
Seraphon have leaped up the list of armies that would be a treat, because not only do you get to play with incredible color schemes for them, but the new miniatures. are
Eric,
so
Eric
detailed,
still has
so
PTSD from
wonderful.
that
This
time
is
that I
alternate colour
cast
schemes
that
for the
meteor
Lancer.
for
There's some really
for
really
Stormcast
hard-hitting
Eternals
in the
and
Seraphon
wiped out like
battle
half his
code
army.
way. One of the things that the studio have basically done is gone, you can paint them in multiple games, colors,
Des
so
Chaz,
you
anything
get
for
so much more
BT?
variation in
No. We've seen the Lion,
one of the things that's really
who's
cool
really
with the
dope,
realms
except
effectively
for
is that
his
the
bare
Sigmar
head,
are kind of intermingled with the
which
realm
looks
variants.
like
So when they're
Tywin
around the fire,
Lannister,
they get their kind of brimstone
and
style
Get
weapon,
Off
and
meets
they're
Get Off My
overwhelming.
Lawn.
They're like fiercely
But the
light
helmeted
edgy.
head options are
You can actually
dope
like
for him,
sprinkle
and he's
them
a
with the red
really cool
background. So
mini.
if you want to kind of make
So
heroes
Dark
such on
Angel
your own,
fans will be very,
and
very
play them
excited.
somewhere in the Mortal Realms and give them really ground them, you can, or you can kind of lean into their classic aesthetic. And what you see here actually is a throwback with that color scheme to a very old concept of blessed by the old ones. So some Seraphon, some lizardmen would be spawned albino, and where that was true, they would be seen as one of the old ones that intervened and gone, this person is
What's the
truly,
difference between
a
Primarch
kind
and
of champion.
Helbrecht?
Given the Destructors war gear,
So
they'd be bigger and stronger than
Helbrecht
themselves.
is
As you can
basically
see
just
there,
a really
Scarlet
badass
Knight
Marine,
Megalon. This is a separate kit from the
who
other
is
unit.
the
And
High
again, that is
Marshal,
a big. You don't quite get the
leader of
scale
the
of it from
chapter.
that, but you can kind of get a sense of it from
Primarch,
the base. That is about the
Primarchs
size of
were
Kragnos.
the
That is a big old,
direct
big old
creations
monster.
of the
Massive
Emperor
space dinosaur, and I love
10,000
your
years
point
ago.
there about the diversity of the
So
Seraphon, that
they
in the
are
realm that they're in,
what the
they come
Space
from the
Marines were
underworld,
derived
star
from.
faring, the star
So they
wizards
are
there, as well
like
as the
gods
warriors
among
that we've
men,
seen within
basically.
sort of corporeal within the realms that they've chosen. It's a fascinating duality that the faction provides you to sort of play it in a wide variety of different ways, both thematically and in gameplay terms.
Primarchs don't yell
And
as
that's
much,
still
or
true
sound like
in the
Skeletor.
new Battle Tome and the new lore. And one of the reasons that we're seeing lots of new troop units, lots of new monsters, especially added to the army, is that the age of the beast, the coming of Kragnos, has effectively shaken the foundations of the Seraphon, and the new kind of wave of bestial energy has woken up all these kind of
These
ancient
dudes are
eggs
cool,
from the
Croxagore.
different pockets of the ziggurats.
Sleepy dinos.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know we had all these eggs." They've woken up.
Woke
On
up
screen
some
at the
big
moment, there's a
dinos.
couple of units of Croxagore. There is one new Croxagore kit coming, and it makes two different units. You can make your standard Croxagore, which are still hulking, enormous reptilian killers, but you can make this brand new unit, which are called Croxagore Warspawned, and these are built and live for battle. So whereas a normal Croxagore in times of peace might help the skinks kind of construct pyramids or fashion things or move heavy loads around, these guys want none of that. They are just angry, massive crocodiles that just want to rip into enemy
Yeah, they're
units.
okay looking.
Angry,
The other ones
aggressive,
are better
heroic
looking, in my opinion.
saviors of the mortal realms.
Sure,
Crocodiles.
I mean they're sort of heroic, so they're about as chaotic and destructive as you can be while still being on Team Order, I think.
Absolutely. Still good guys.
And here's a shot of the whole Seraphon range, kind of as it all comes together, and you get a sense now
The
of
dinos
all
are
those
cool.
new units that we've seen, and how they kind of come together to make just an incredible looking faction. So everything about
And
the
they've got
Seraphon,
Jabba the
every
Hutt.
new kit, I think is a winner. They're just such a lovely looking army.
I cannot wait to collect them myself, Eddie.
There is, of course, a battle tome on the way. We can now show you the cover, featuring as it does an Agradon Lancer champion. Brand new battle tome obviously brings with it all the new rules you'll need to play with the Seraphon. Some of the existing kits still stick around, so things like the Stegodons, the Carnosaur, most of the big monsters that are relatively recent kits that are still really nice stick around. But all of those new things we've seen are added to it as well. So it's a pretty big army now in terms of the number of war scrolls you get to choose from.
Yeah, it really feels like it's fit properly into the Age of Sigmar universe, heavily revitalized, and again, a bunch of clever girls there in those units.
The first place you will be able to get hold of the new Seraphon and the new battle tome is an army box, which is on its way fairly
Of course,
soon.
it'll be an army
And
box.
inside this box, you will get
A bunch of things.
these units. So the battle tome, 2 units of Raptidons, the Slanmaid Priest, and a unit of Saurus. And then that will be followed swiftly afterwards by the release of all the rest of the Seraphon models that we've seen. So if you are a Seraphon fan, there is a really, really good...
It's good times to be a Lizardman fan. Pretty cool stuff.
Pretty cool.
It's exciting. I think we have a bunch of other things to cover for Age of Sigmar.
We were about halfway through Age of Sigmar.
Only halfway.
So there's loads of cool stuff for Age of Sigmar.
Well, you talked about the fact that we have the Seraphon coming soon. What else do we have before we get to the Seraphon?
Let's have a look at the video and see what.
Let's
A new era of death. The cheese of this video is great already. Weird Bone Man. 2 more books. That guy's weird looking. I do appreciate the like 1960s esque
So
design of that
I
video.
really gotta say, before
It's
we even
cute.
talk about those, the marketing studio, the Warhammer studios that put together the vibe and the theme of these videos
They had
never
some-
gets
they had
enough
some fun.
credit.
They had
It's
some fun.
pretty
Yeah.
amazing. I'm always entertained by it. But tell us about these models.
Yeah, so we've got 2 new
Yeah, so we're
heroes
gonna talk
coming
about these
for, Grand Alliance Death,
these
and 2
models
new
for a little
battle
bit.
tomes
Hopefully,
that
then
accompany
we'll get
them.
some more 40k
So
stuff
we
because
have the Soulblight Gravelords.
we know it's
and
not
a
done.
a named vampire hero, and the Arcearch Bone Reapers, and a new generic hero that they can add into their forces.
Yep.
So I think we've got some pictures of the models we can bring up on screen and have a look.
And you should talk about the Ossiarch first, but I love the way you describe that vampire model.
They're both really, really cool. So this is the Mortisan Ossifactor, and effectively this is a mage who can construct units, and their particular speciality amongst the Mortisans is that they build the biggest, largest, most destructive units. So this is in game terms, this is a buff unit for your biggest, toughest units. Make them a little bit more durable, or you can make them a little bit better at killing stuff. So if you've gone for an elite, or you've gone for kind of monster heavy Ossiarch.
The bone men are really weird looking to me
You put into it to bolster it.
because they don't really look like
Just a really
bone
nice model. Lots
bone
of
men.
cool
They're like,
effects and
I don't
stuff. So
know.
if you're looking for a painting project on a slightly smaller scale, that would lend itself pretty well to that. There is a new battle tome. It has a brand new cover. Looks very cool, and that is Catacross, the Mortarch, who gets some tasty new rules in this battle tome as well. The current Bone Reapers battle tome launched with the last edition of Age of Sigmar, and this brings it into the brand new edition, along with lots of all the new rules that other battle tomes recently have got. So it kind of updates it across the board and makes them kind of compete really in the current edition.
Makes sense to me. Tell me about this vampire.
Okay, well, we'll jump to the vampire in a second. So this is Ivya Volga, and she is a outcast of her house. She is a wandering lone monster hunter.
She reminds me of
she wanders out into the wild.
She reminds me of
places
the guy
she
from
finds monsters. She chops
what
their
was
heads off, she
Cursed
does whatever.
City, the
So
bad guy from
the other
Cursed City.
vampires
That's
are
what she
sort
reminds me
like
of.
Not 100% on board with her, but she's still a vampire. She's still part of the family. When push comes to shove, and the armies march against.
She also got like
join the
wolf
fight.
legs.
She is
Kinda
accompanied
weird.
by a swarm of bats, which she uses to kind of swamp enemy units and monsters to help her kind of even the odds in close combat. But what's quite fun about her, I guess, is that you've got
She's got some kind of
with
legs.
lots of different, almost kind of fairy tale elements pulled together into a character. But it's a vampire, right? So it's a very dark Warhammery take on a very kind of classic European fairy tale sort of vibe.
It's the vampire's lead of Into the Woods. It makes sense. It's an interesting and fascinating thematic element. And it seems like both of these characters are helping drive those armies deeper into their bespoke and unique aesthetics and feels that they have.
Yeah, but both of them give you a sort of direction, I guess. So she's obviously got wolf elements to her, so you can lean into that kind of dire wolfy kind of vibe. Soulblight Gravelords again, actually got one of the last battle tomes of the last edition, which meant that they didn't get lots of.
All right, GW, come on. Let's get on with it. Show me some 40k.
This battle tome brings them bang up to date. It also incorporates other units we've seen added in since the last battle tome was added, including things like the vampire unit we saw in the last edition, the last box set for Warcry. So it actually has quite a lot more to it than even the current Soulblight Gravelords book. So Soulblight Gravelords came out relatively recently. They were a huge hit. One of the most popular armies now in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and this book brings them bang up to date with loads of cool stuff that your army can now do.
They certainly look cool.
But
Vampires are cool.
That's not it. You've got even more.
I feel like no one would have predicted that this was going to be an Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, I mean, they've been spoiled, and here's something.
Let off with a line, and now it's all about the mortal realms.
Well, let's see what else we got.
I don't remember taking the coin Malleus, but here we are, trudging through the mud to bring Sigmar's light to the realms.
They look like Bretonnian peasants, only with more armor. Cities of Sigmar, I guess. Yeah, the free cities.
So, Cities of Sigmar, that is the new infantry that is on its way for the Free Peoples, basically, Sigmar's mortal followers. So, just to set your expectations a little bit, we are still a good few months away from the release of this army in full, but we wanted to kind of keep
It
you
does
updated
not
as
look
to where
anything
things
like
are
Arena
with
Rex,
Season
Eric.
2. We've kind of been
Nice
following
try.
the Cities of Sigmar project as it develops, and now we've got the first kind of painted miniatures to show.
Yeah, there was
This
format.
is,
There was
some
definitely a
warriors
sincere
from
lack
the
of lion
local
puns.
infantry units
There was
of
a couple
Sigmar.
early on,
They
but
are effectively, if you imagine
not
that these people have
not
to
nearly
face giant
enough.
sharks and huge uryks
So
and vampires and monsters and pretty
now I
much
think
swinging
every time they talk about
the
something other than 40k, you should start
well,
drinking.
not
That's
really. If
that
you're
should be your
looking for
new
the absolute
drinking game.
underdog of the Mortal Realms, this is this unit. They are given a rusty shield, not matching weaponry, a hat that just about fits, and then kind of booted out en masse into the realms on great big crusades, given a pat on the back, and they have to go and found a city somewhere in the Mortal Realms. So they are the plucky underdogs of the Mortal Realms.
It's good to actually see some interesting models that are basically the opposite end of the spectrum of that sort of often wild and crazy and monstrous element and aesthetic that you see a lot of
Even on
Sigmar.
the good guy side, right? Even in the Forces of Order, Stormcast have very much been the point of view characters almost that we've kind of followed. And what this army basically does is it gives you the base level. It gives you like, what do the humans look like? What are they up to in the Mortal Realms? We'll have lots more stuff for the Cities of Sigmar over the coming weeks and months as we kind of approach the release. This is a piece of artwork from the upcoming Battle Tome, and what this does, it's quite cool. It gives you a sense of some of the sub-factions that are covered within the new Battle Tome.
The different sigils of the various cities.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the center there, you've got Sigmar sigil, the 12-pointed star, but round the edge, you've got some symbols of cities that might be familiar if you're up to date on your current Age of Sigmar lore, and there's some ones that are
We're
brand new,
not,
so
because
give you a bit of a sense of
pretty sure
different
nobody
cores of the
watching,
Mortal Realms that
very
the,
few watching
the Battle Tome
has
the armies will
You
take.
said Cities of Sigmar still
Sigmar
getting
armies.
rough. What's
So
it gonna look like between now and then?
So, in terms of the roadmap for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, we have Blades of Khorne and Head Knights for Slaash are available to pre-order just now, so they are days away from being in people's hands. Very soon after, we get 2 Death Battle Tomes, so the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and the Soulblight Gravelords are hot on their heels. And then we have Mystery Book 1 in summer. We're not going to tell you what that is just yet, but it's going to be very cool and exciting. So
Mystery Book 1.
Tune in for
Oh boy.
to find out what that is. We also have Seraphon alongside their army box. They're going to land in summer, as will the latest General's Handbook. And then in autumn, we have Mystery Book 2, which I'm not going to tell you about today, but just very tantalizing, very
Just
mysterious.
the worst, Eddie.
And I am the worst.
Teasing us constantly.
True. And then Cities of Sigmar will be with us before the end of the year. So we'll keep you up to date. We'll give you lots more information about the Cities of Sigmar. But whether it's Seraphon, Cities of Sigmar, or any of those other battle tomes that are on the way, it is a pretty exciting few months, actually.
I mean, you've only told us up to autumn. Who knows what the winter
Who knows?
will bring?
Who knows what the winter could bring?
Well, what do we have? So we've covered a lot of Sigmar. We took
Sigmar.
a detour from the 41st Millennium. I feel like we should go back there for
We
at
can
least
go
a
that
little
for a
bit.
little bit. Yeah, see
All
what
right, what else do we have here?
All right, let's see. Here we go. Votan.
Dane, we've got to get out of here. The Hulk's going to blow. Not until we find our iron.
Kill team.
Quick, search through the stasis chambers. Beastmen! Get to the escape pods. The ancestors are watching.
What is that one Votan dude doing? The Hearth can always a jump pack. Why does he have a jump pack if he's in kill team? Thought they didn't have jump pack models. The Felgors are pretty cool looking though. But do they really belong in 40k?
I am a huge fan of Kill Team, and these are 2 amazing kill teams. And we're nearing the end of the story of Gallowdark.
Yeah, so this is Gallowfall, which gives you a hint about what might be occurring in the narrative. This is the last installment in the current season of Kill Team, which is the Into the Dark season where we're inside spaceships. And the reason this is the end of the season of this is that the Gallowdark, the space Hulk we've been fighting over for the past year, is crashing. It is crashing into a planet. And this last...
Seems an appropriate Warhammer 40,000 sort of an
absolutely,
outcome.
all the best bits of it blow up. That's kind of how it works. Welcome to Warhammer. And and this Space Hulk is crashing
I
into a
mean,
planet. And
don't
this
get me wrong, the
last
cores are
installment
cool,
is basically the last 5 minutes
but
of a really
where do they
complex
fit into
kill
40k?
where
I've
your Kill teams
never
have to get to the
like
escape pods and get
I've never
out
heard
of
of
dodge
Beastmen in
before the
40k.
spaceship crashes into a planet.
Maybe
And
that's
it's
just me.
obliterated.
I'm going to tell you, the Votan team has all the hallmarks of a great action film in terms of how they're equipped as well. My favorite being probably the minigun,
There's
the
a minigun,
high-las
yeah,
rotary
yeah.
cannon, to be precise. What about yours? What's your favorite?
So my favorite thing in the Leagues of Votan half is that there's one of the characters who's basically come with knuckle dusters to a space fight. So they know they're going to board a spaceship. They don't know what horrors could await them. They have access to the full range of the Leagues of Votan equipment. You know, railguns, rifles, all sorts of cool stuff. And this guy has decided he's going to go with the knuckle dusters.
I mean, they're like laser space.
They are like
knuckle
laser
dusters,
knuckle
to be clear.
dusters, but even so.
I mean, when in doubt, punch
Knuckle
them,
dusters. When in doubt, punch
Absolutely.
stuff.
And up against them, we have the Felgor Ravagers, which are a Beastmen warband. But let's take a look at some of these Leagues of Votan in a little bit more detail. So it's based on the current plastic kit for the Kin, which is already a really flexible kit with loads of different head options and weapon options. And much like we've seen with lots of the other kill teams, we have a new sprue that expands the set and effectively allows you to make your models into specialists within kill team. I think it's one of the
They're pretty cool.
better upgrade kits because it adds onto a very recent kit, and the kit was already pretty good, right?
Yeah.
The Leagues of Votan kit was a flexible kit.
And of course, you get everything you need in the launch box for it, so it's not.
Sharuni says Beastmen have always been around. They've just been persecuted and hidden by the Imperium.
Of course, we've got the
Interesting.
space laser.
Sounds like heresy to
Probably
me,
got a better name than that, but
Yeah,
and
well,
we
I'm
should
not-
purge
I'm not a
them
lore writer,
immediately.
we get that. And do we have the rest of the pictures there as well? Yeah, there's that. There's the minigun. That's the one I want. Plus, what better inside of a spaceship than sort of a jump pack, right?
Yeah, you got a jump pack too, which is pretty cool. I like the Ironkin, who's got the kind of the tech assistant, who's got a kind of data pad there, which is guiding them through the ship.
Yep, but a reminder that the Ironkin are no different in the eyes of the Kin than any other member of their race.
They are an equal opportunities
equals in
employer.
yeah,
True.
absolutely.
Up against them, we have the
Pretty
Felgor
cool.
Ravagers. So this is a really exciting kit. We haven't really seen
They look really
Beastmen
cool.
in Warhammer 40,000 properly for a long time. We saw a few of them pop up in Blackstone Fortress, but they were definitely like the side thing rather than the main event.
I mean, these are Emperor worshipping Beastmen, right?
I don't think so, though. There's a lot of chaos spikes on these guys. This is a brand new kit. It's very flexible, so much like lots of the other kill team kits we've seen, the bespoke kill team kits, you can build them in loads of different ways. There's different options for weapons and heads, and there's interchangeability between them. Each one is a specialist, so it's very definitely a combat-focused kill team, but you've got some slightly stealthy ones, you've got some magic-y ones, you've got some with extra
Magic-y
equipment,
ones.
smoke grenades,
That's
gas
heresy.
grenades, you've got some with bionic bits, some that like charging and ramming stuff. So if you're looking for an aggressive kill team, it gives you some options, and much like lots of the other recent kill teams like the Recruit and the Eldar, the level of detail on those
The
kits
chair is cool.
really, really lovely. So
And the detail extends.
I like the chair a lot.
You can see we've got one of the last expansions to the set. We've got a bunch of coward pods that you can jump into to get away from the trouble that's facing you. It's kind of an amazing set to finish off that sort of well-rounded collection of Into the
you
Dark
get a little
Domain.
medical bay, which is quite cool.
Some
There's
pretty cool.
stasis pods.
Again, another form of coward pod. I get it. This is a sort of a theme that's running on here, but Beastmen kind of have
Coward
that vibe on
pods.
occasion.
I think what I really
I
like
like
about it is it's got a feel of like a really old school Warhammer set, because you've basically got dwarfs fighting beastmen, right?
Yeah.
But they've put them in space in a spaceship, and they've all got like laser guns. and
Dwarfs
chainsaws and stuff.
versus
Laser
Beastmen
knuckles,
in
laser knuckles, so it just feels really, really
space.
Warhammer at the same time as being completely science fiction.
And
It's
once again,
really fun.
this whole Hulk that you've been fighting over
It's
for all
pretty
these
cool.
months is crashing.
It is crashing, yeah. So the climactic final installment to the current season of Kill Team, two very, very fun Kill Teams to expand it. Just a really fun box.
I'm excited too, not to like give another shout out to Adepticon, but right over there in the other room, we've got literally what, like a 100+ player event of nothing but Into the Dark terrain and everything else happening tomorrow and the next day. So a lot of excitement around the end of the season of Into the Dark, but also it's still kind of alive and kicking with people playing in it all over the world right now.
Yeah, yeah. And Into the Dark as a way to play won't go away. That's like your inside
Evergreen.
Kill Team, so it gives a very different feel from playing Kill Team when you have ruins and things. It's a very claustrophobic, close quarters thing. And both those Kill Teams actually, Leagues of Votan, very durable, lots of very dangerous short-range weaponry, and the Beastmen team, very good close combat. You'd imagine. I haven't seen
Brian, I
stats in
think
Houston
they
yet, but
are
it's
kill
pretty
team
good.
only at the
Notoriously
moment.
hard to
I
kill.
don't believe
Let's not
they're part
forget
of
that
another
Kill Team,
army at the
all these
moment.
teams are considered to be elites in a sense, right? These are not your run-of-the-mill dregs. These are sort of the best of the best going on.
Yeah.
You know, especially difficult
best of
special
gores.
operations kind of. Yeah, the best of gores.
The best of gores.
Oh, well done.
Puns.
Excellent joke. I love it. Anyway,
But no
what do
line
we have
puns fail.
next?
Yes, show us more 40k.
Well, above the world and crashing into it to under the world.
We're back to Age of Sigmar. And Warhammer Underpants.
I'm super excited. It's a bunch of Tzeentch models that looks like they really
I do like
took
the
the
Tzeentch
full
models,
brunt
they're
of
pretty
what
cool looking.
happens when you really followed Tzeentch as far as it can go. Tell us about this.
So this is a brand new season of Warhammer Underworlds, and it brings with it a new Stormcast warband, which are a magic warband, and
levitating rocks and all.
on the other side is a Tzeentchian warband, which has a disciple of one of the Gaunt Summoners of Tzeentch, the most powerful sorcerer, so somebody who's been tutored by one of Tzeentch's main followers, basically, and a gaggle of basically bits of wild magic that they've thrown together. So if you thought horrors were wild and unruly, these kind of take it to the next stage. So it's weird hollow. It is a magic-themed season for Warhammer Underworlds, and two really, really nice-looking warbands. This being a new season, it is a really good place to jump into Warhammer Underworlds if you've not played it before. It comes with all the things you need to play. So you've got a board, you get all the dice you need, you get 4 decks, so you get a deck for each of the warbands. You also get 2 more Rivals decks.
The Rivals decks, so
yeah.
Right out of the batch, they've got a sort of evergreen format decks as well that are baked into the box.
Yeah, so those decks work with any of your existing warbands from any season of Warhammer Underworlds you've ever had, and also work particularly well with the 2 warbands that come in this box. I think
I played this game.
Of this box, though, I think,
I haven't in a while. I played it when it first came out. It was a lot of fun when it first came out. It's definitely getting more and more complicated, adding more and more stuff to it. And honestly, one of the things that I liked was it was very straightforward, and now it's getting a little bit bloated, in my opinion.
Wild magic manifested into the form of leaping lesser demons. So it's all about basically that your sorcerer is summoning stuff. That's very much the linchpin of the warband, and the unit is just full of gimmicks, right? So this is a really wild, unusual warband, not only in terms of how it looks, but also how it plays.
It's a really well-named warband as well, and it's hard for me to believe that something this weird could be as adorable as the sea creatures we've seen in previous editions as well. But this is one of those bands where I saw it and immediately had to have it on the miniatures alone, much less the cool rules that we get in the newest edition.
Yeah, I really like the central character. I fill in the sorcerer. The Gaunt Summoners, I think, are really, really nice miniatures, and this has got all the kind of hallmarks of that. It's slightly differently presented. I think Tzeentch just gives you an opportunity as a painter to just do some really wild stuff. And I think in terms of left field, out there warbands, and just miniatures generally that don't come much more wild than this.
Very accessible too, a lot of organics, a lot of interesting flowing robes, but also a lot of room.
They contrast up very nicely.
They do.
Yeah, they contrast nicely.
Don't.
On the other side of the box, we have Domitan's Storm Coven. So this is a magic-themed Storm host Stormcast unit. They are equipped in Thunderstrike
Pretty cool
armor,
too.
so they fit in alongside the recent releases we had alongside things like Dominion. Just really, really nice Stormcast models. So each one is a great character model in their own right. Some really nice stuff going on with the bases, really nice poses and proportions. Again, if you're looking for a painting project.
All right, come on. It's been almost an hour. Let's get to 40K here.
That theme that we've seen in Sigmar really leverage that new model design capability we've seen of those effects and those practical magical activities that are happening on the base. It's fascinating to see, and also, can't wait to see in a game where someone throws a colonnade at someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it before. It comes with lots of different decks you can use. So you've got the Rivals decks for each of the warbands, but you've got 2 other Rivals decks that you can use with each of the warbands or with any other warband in Warhammer Underworld. So the box set itself is a really flexible gaming box that you can play on its
Come on, GW. I know you're saving a big Warhammer thing for the end here, so or a 40K thing here for the end. So, well, let's get on with it.
that it is, no matter how you purchase it, one of those things that has infinite flexibility, whether it's just for a regular game on occasion with your local game group, or whether it's building into that scene to go to things like the World Championships and everything in between.
So Rivals, for those of you that don't know, Rivals for Underworlds is effectively pre-made decks. You can choose from either the deck that comes with your warband or from a selection of other generic decks, and it makes it very accessible because it means that you don't need to have bought loads and loads of different expansions for Warhammer Underworlds to kind of pick the best card from each.
That was the biggest problem I had with it, is like all these generic usable cards that came with all these other warbands that you had to buy in order to get those cards, and you may not even want that warband at all. So hopefully maybe that solves this. I really wish GW would have just sold card packs where you could just buy those generic cards individually or as like a group.
What do we have next?
But let's see what we got next.
Yeah, are we done?
I think we're finished.
Is that it?
Yeah, so we're done.
Well, I'm glad everyone got up at 3 a.m. UK time to listen to this amazing preview. We got to see the Lion.
That was pretty cool.
We got to see Underworlds. We got to see a whole bunch of stuff for Age of Sigmar.
Good times.
I'm pretty tired here. We did a live preview at Adepticon, an amazing show.
The trolling is
I think we've got nothing left to cover, right?
There's the one thing.
the one thing.
Are we actually going to do that?
We're going to do it, yeah. Should we roll the video?
No.
Go on.
Okay,
Don't be that guy. Come on. It's
Werner, fine. Go ahead.
All right, here we go. Finally.
Victory. That is what the preachers cry from the spires of their temples. What commanders tell the soldiers in their service. The Indomitus Crusade meets with triumph after triumph. Day by day we tear Imperium Nihilus from the Despoiler's grip. And though we are beset on all sides, with each battle we drive back the mutant, the heretic, the alien. As I speak these words, our forces engage the remnants of Leviathan. Reclaiming lost worlds. Atoning for old shame.
That was a Primaris Flamer, dude.
A crusade to cleanse the stars.
Guileyman looks like a pretty boy.
Taking the fight to the enemy.
Oh shit, that's a combi weapon.
We routed the Tyranids at Baal. We broke their high fleet. Soon, their foulness will be but a memory. That is what the preachers say. Belief will not save us. Lies will not protect us. But it is our hope that will damn us. the spies and the sleuths.
Filthy witch.
Our people sing of victory. Victory as the galaxy burns. Victory as the Imperium rots around us. Victory as humanity rages against the dying of the light. Victory.
Alright, so that was a really cool cinematic.
A new edition of Warhammer 40,000.
Uh,
Who knew?
It,
Who knew?
Nobody called that,
Nobody.
actually.
Nobody
It
had
was
any idea.
so good. I gotta tell you, growing up my whole life as a fan, there's something about the grim, dark 41st millennium that when you watched, and it was beautiful and it was stunning, but when you watched Adeptus Sororitas and the Ultramarines,
So we all kind of knew this
crushing
was
some
coming.
Necrons, there was a little bit of hope. There was a little
That was
bit
a
of
really
glimmer
cool
of hope.
cinematic.
Oh, yeah,
There's a lot of things in there that hint at new models, I think. Combi Flamers.
It's the first time I've seen it tonight, and I'm still excited.
Those are
to have
regular looking
not had it.
Terminators.
It was.
But that Dreadnought, I'd have to go watch it again, but it looked like a Redemptor chassis with a las cannon and missile launcher on it. I might be wrong on that. I'll have to go and look at it again, but could be definitely some new hints at models in there, which is pretty cool.
It is terrible, but it is a wonderful place to have a hobby. And why don't we let the people who actually wrote the game tell us a little bit more about
Absolutely.
that? I mean, we'll tell you a lot, but first.
Warhammer 40,000 is the world's most popular tabletop miniatures game. Players command armies of genetically enhanced super soldiers, brutal monsters, powerful aliens, and destructive war machines to play out spectacular
Yeah, right, that's definitely a
battles
Redemptor
in the
chassis.
41st millennium.
Our mantra with this new edition has been streamlining.
We've been listening to the community, and that's a large part of why we've decided to focus the game as much as possible.
How can we keep the tactical depth and richness that players love, but examine every rule in the game? Does this need to be here, or is there another way that we can achieve the same result?
To secure victory, you must understand your strengths and the strengths of your enemy.
We've fundamentally changed the datasheets from the ground up,
making them much more accessible and really focusing the rules onto the datasheet themselves. What the team's been able to do with this is really look at every unit in the game, make sure it has a really clear battle.
So we're getting
role,
indexes.
the thing for it to do, and then write the right rules for it.
Your datasheet rules
That's a
all
terrible
fit on
idea.
a single card, and your army rules will fit on a single page.
One of the things we wanted to ensure was that everyone got to play 40k as soon as possible after the edition was launched. So to make that happen, all of the rules for everyone's armies via the datasheets and their army rules will be available for free.
Well, at least I got that right.
Between the stars, a twisted mockery of evolution spawns fresh horrors.
It's a galaxy at war. This is the onset of what the Imperium will regard as the Fourth Tyrannic War. This is the largest Tyranid swarm ever recognized in the galaxy, emerging where no one's expected it. The Segmentum Pacificus.
To be a warrior of the Emperor in such times is to face an array of nightmares.
What we've managed to achieve with this edition is a game that players of Warhammer 40,000 will love for its tactical depth and choices, but is streamlined and plays much quicker.
The end result is faster, while still keeping all the flavour that you've come to love in Warhammer 40,000.
For players who've been with Warhammer 40,000 for the last 35 years, they've never seen anything like this before. We've never shown conflict at this scale.
Immersive and thrilling new gameplay. Discover a major new narrative in the Fourth Tyrannic War. The new edition of Warhammer 40,000 deploys this summer.
Well, streamline sounds good. But basically it sounds like we're going to indexes, which I think is
It's
a
very
bad
simple.
idea.
We'll talk about some of them in depth, in fact, in this very live stream, Eddie. But it's fascinating to me because there's a whole bunch to unpack about the new edition, not least of which is what's going on with the lore of the 41st Millennium, as well as what's happening with the rules. What does a streamlined experience actually mean? Is it still the 40K we've come to know and love? As well as what do free rules mean? Because there's a lot more to that than what you might expect.
There's lots of lines there thrown away which have quite big implications.
It's definitely going to be data cards. Looks like for similar to AOS style, but
the reason we've all gotten into the hobby in the first place. Why don't we take a look at some miniatures?
New Terminators. So they're going to show us one miniature.
So,
okay.
Terminators are back. These are the first company of the Space Marines. Each one of those chapters has Terminators. They are the best of the Space Marines. And the new miniatures are absolutely what Terminators always were in your mind. These are indomitable, walking powerhouses of destruction.
They're pretty sweet looking.
Hate and fury unleashed upon the enemies of mankind.
And really brought up to speed with the development of the miniature range as a whole in the new edition, as well as the way that the miniatures themselves have been scaled over time. And I'm especially excited because as I was watching the chat during some of the videos,
can't wait to customize them into Black Templar.
See new Terminator miniatures, and well, you were going to see new Terminator miniatures, and they are stunning. They do all of the justice.
Real question is, are they going to be Primaris?
All of the justice to the aesthetic and the feel of Terminators in the first place, while being brought up to the scale that really justifies what they are in the lore.
So they stand really well in the army. They stand taller than a Primaris Marine. One of the things that's worth saying about these Terminators is that these aren't necessarily Primaris Terminators. They're not necessarily firstborn Terminators. Any Space Marine can earn the right to wear a suit of Terminator armor.
Interesting.
They prove themselves to get promoted.
So they're neither firstborn nor Primaris. So
these could
that's
be
interesting.
Worn by
Either
of the firstborn veterans of the previous Tyrannic Wars. They could also be worn by Primaris veterans of the Indomitus Crusade or any other type of Space Marine veteran.
And this is deeply true in the lore for the models. This is canonical. This is the way that they are intended, and we're not being cheeky when we say that we've actually handled both the long-running demand for new firstborn miniatures and for Primaris Terminators, because they are, when all is said and done, Terminators, and there could be anyone inside those.
The Terminator suits themselves are relics, right? So these are thousands of years old, and even Belisarius Call, after 10,000 years of around with all
please have assault variants. Well, let me tell you, it will not be hard to convert them to assault variants. I'll definitely be picking these up. I'll definitely be converting them to assault variants of some kind, assuming that, assuming that'll be what they are. I think it'll be really dope looking.
When you see these guys on the battlefield, they really
Eric, so technically, they can fit in a Land Raider.
Power Fist and Stormbolter are standard. The unit also obviously comes with an assault cannon. We saw one of those earlier as well. So it's just great to see such an iconic unit back in Warhammer 40,000.
I can't wait to see more of them, but I feel like we need to see the other side of the spectrum as well. But first, I think it's good to highlight the difference in scale between the Terminators of old and the Terminators of today. And you can kind of see in this.
Yeah, they're definitely huge. They look great.
Old Terminators to be tiny necessarily, but really fits much more prominently within the range of miniatures that are available for the Space Marine faction. They kind of perfectly land in that wave of miniatures.
They definitely make the old Terminators look tiny. That's for sure.
Something like the more recent Chaos Terminators, some of the kind of the bigger character models. So
they look great. I'm excited for them.
Maybe like Rubik Gulliman or the Lion or something like that, leading a squad of these guys. And obviously every chapter, all the main chapters we know about have their own particular special brand of Terminator. So the Death Watch, the Archangels, the First Company veterans of the Ultramarines that have their particular beef against the Tyranids.
They do have quite a beef.
They've got some serious beef. But so every chapter's Terminators are cool, and these models allow you to be as cool as Terminators always should have been.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of the beef that they have for Tyranids, we've shown you a new Space Marine miniature.
Seems only fair, doesn't it? Seems only fair.
Here we go. Some new NIDs. Not gonna lie, it doesn't look a whole lot different.
So
New Termagants.
New Termagants. So Termagants are the most numerous forces of the hive mind. They spawn them out in their millions, in their billions across the planets they're seeking to consume. And the new Termagants are a glow up, basically, of the Termagants we've
It's
seen
also
before.
the first model I ever painted.
Is it really?
Eddie, a little known fact is that a Termagant was the first model I ever painted, and now I can't wait to paint millions more of them in the new wave.
So here we are, a closer look.
I mean, they
at them.
look
You
good.
can see that the level of detail on these is so crisp and so lovely. And these are
They're
very much the vanguard
honestly
of a
not
new wave of
that
Tyranid.
much
The
different.
Tyranid faction
Then there's a little bit more detail.
spoiled this year. If you're a Tyranid fan,
but
there are so many new
yeah,
plastic kits. It's the most significant update to the
they're
Tyranid
pretty cool
army we've
looking. They
ever
look
done as a
still
company.
very, very
I'm
similar
excited
to the
about
old
it as a
sculpt.
longtime Tyranid fan as
Maybe
well,
they'll show us a
because there's an
comparison.
enormous amount of work that's been done to make the Tyranid range feel both nostalgic but also very fresh. And of course, anyone who watches a cinematic trailer should probably watch it carefully, or rewatch it a few times carefully. But I think one of the things that's most exciting is that there is, there's a natural alien nature to the Tyranids, right? They're the most alien of
like
races to the
unknowable, right?
galaxy,
So
almost unknowable. And there's some definite sort of evolution of the range into exploring that sort of very foreign, very alien, very truly
Primaris Nids, yeah.
new range. And I'm so excited to see the reactions of folk when we share even more of the new plastic range of Tyranids in the future.
Yeah, I should say, Mike, if you want a sense of like which new miniatures might be on the way for Tyranids, check out the cinematic. There are some returning favourites, it's fair to say. Some units that maybe haven't had the time in the limelight for a bit and are well deserving of a
All right, there we go.
Kit.
Hey, you don't have to scream it, Tim.
So there's a good, finally comparison.
We've never seen
All right,
before.
so that's
Some of the
definitely much better than
hallmarks of
the
Tyranids, I
existing
suppose, is
one.
their continuous adaptation,
A
evolution,
lot
facing challenges.
more detail.
The hive
Look a little
fleet has
larger
definitely
too,
taken that on board,
which
through
is
its
good.
Tyrannic invasion.
And we
And
can
hopefully
see
they're
here
more
in the
than two
scaling, Tim,
pieces.
that while the Termagant has definitely come a long way from its very tried and true, the trusty, rusty old plastic kit, it hasn't been outscaled in the development of it. It's still the same Termagant in terms of how it fits
Just looks
into the
much
range as
better.
it used to be, just with that really fresh glow up, with that really
I think it's the level of
detailed look.
detail that,
Yeah,
that really
absolutely.
changes. So like I've got quite a lot of Termagants. I've got a Tyranid army. I've got about 30 Termagants painted up, I think. But I'm
those
looking.
are rookie numbers. You got to.
Eric, don't.
They're
You're
most
not kidding
expensive
anyone. You're gonna buy
things
more. We all know you are.
painted up for. But they're so detailed. Like the level of like crispness on that model, and you can see now that like contrast on that miniature, or like a wash or a dry brush or something like that, is going to pick out all that detail really nicely. So even though it's really, really detailed,
They're
you
cool.
can certainly paint those very quickly if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Nice, nice glow up for them,
besides
definitely.
miniatures, there's a whole lot going on in the 41st millennium, isn't there, with the arrival of this new Tyranid range? What does that bode for us in terms of when we talk about the actual development of the universe itself?
Yeah, exactly. I did build a lot of them.
The new edition of Warhammer
A lot.
40,000 is the new Tyrannic War. It's the fourth Tyrannic War against the Tyranids. So what we saw at the end of the Arcs of Omen, with the return of the Lion, was the end of that story. So that has a really solid, conclusive narrative that kind of has a big culmination, a big showdown between the forces of the Angels of Death and the forces of Chaos. And then what we've done with the new edition is we've picked up the lens of what's going on in the galaxy. We've moved it to another part. In this instant, it's the western rim of the galaxy. So if you're
Western rim.
if you're familiar with your,
typically come from.
they come from the east usually. They come from the east. So if you're familiar with your Warhammer 40,000 lore, you'll know that generally speaking, the Tyranid invasions have all come from the galactic east, and they've kind of picked off Macragge and the Tower
It was always told as the beginning of this tendrils, with the Hive Fleet in theory behind it.
Yes. So what we've got now with the fourth Tyrannic War is the forces of the Leviathan. The Imperium has been fighting them for quite a long time, and they thought they kind of got their measure, right? They fought them at Baal.
Broke their fleets at Baal.
Yeah, they thought they might have seen the.
It's pretty cool. They're coming from a different direction.
Halted, and that's absolutely not true. What we're seeing now is from the other side of the galaxy, this enormous, great tendril, this sweeping mass of Tyranids.
Fallen Crusader, yeah. I get what you mean. I just built 10 Relic Terminators, so I know what you mean. But I'm always up for more miniatures. You can never have too many miniatures.
Sense of the absolute scale and cosmic horror of the Tyranids, which everybody knew was huge, but this is like, we thought it was just coming from one direction, and actually the galaxy is completely surrounded. There are Tyranids coming from all sides.
It's a huge and stunning change for me in terms of reflecting sort of the scope, scale, alien nature, and sort of almost the terminal threat that Tyranid represent. It's not an unknowable, who knows how much more it is. They're so large that the entire galaxy is now surrounded effectively.
Absolutely, yeah. So just another apocalypse to add to the growing list for the Imperium.
Well, should we talk a little bit about the rules?
Let's talk rules, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things we're not
Simplified,
sure.
not simple.
Maybe when we wonder how much will we talk about the
We'll
rules
see.
reveal right up with the cinematic.
We'll
But
see
we'll do
about that.
We'll talk a little bit about what does new 40k bring from an actual playing of the game perspective. First one is we mentioned that the game has been streamlined. It's been simplified. The game is not simple. Let's remember this is still Warhammer 40,000. It's still the game that we all sort of know and love.
That's a very
And it has
fine
all of the
line to
hallmarks
tread.
of Warhammer 40,000 that our community has grown up around, enjoying recreating battles in the battlefield. But from a simplification perspective, there's been an enormous amount of work done to make the game less dense, to make redundancy and minor rules spread across numerous publications less complicated, and to streamline everything into sort of, and we'll talk about it a little bit as we go through a couple of these next elements of the game. A good example is instead of having, let me think of it, if you were to run a Space Marine detachment today, Space Marines Army, you might have a book that has several pages of stratagems, you have several pages of psychic powers, you have warlord traits, you have relics, you have all these rules and layers of rules. And then if you want them to be,
quite a lot to learn,
it's
right?
a lot. And then
Before
if you want to
bring it
make
to the
them
table.
Ultramarines and add that on top, then you've got more pages of rules and stratagems and so on and so forth. What we didn't want to do is get rid of the value of things like stratagems and enhancements to your warlord or to some of your key character units. But they've been simplified down so that when you're playing, you'll have one full page spread open. And on that one full page spread, you'll have a series of stratagems, about 6 on average per army, as well as a series of upgrades to your warlord or to your relics, and a
6.
sub-faction rule, effectively, to whatever your army may be. And if you choose to play a different grouping, let's say you go from Ultramarines to the Ultramarines First Company, instead of adding a whole nother book to the whole experience, you'll take that one-page spread of rules and replace it with a different one, so that you're always working with a really tight, streamlined set of rules, but still the same depth that you have today within your army, different stratagems, different abilities. And then a number of different stratagems, rules, and other things have been taken and put back onto the data sheet to really bring the units to the forefront of the game as an experience again. So as opposed to putting down your units and then playing a lot of the game as it were.
I like the strats change.
There's a greater emphasis for many of those rules
6
into the
feels
data
like
sheets
very
and
little
enhance the
though
overall game
for an
experience.
entire army.
We also have key changes to phases. They've been streamlined. We have the morale phase has been moved into the command phase and rejiggered entirely with something called Battle Shock, which we may talk about a little bit more here. The psychic phase is
They could never get morale right.
The actual data sheets of the rules and abilities.
So it's not a psychic phase
There
anymore.
isn't an actual psychic
that's a key
phase
change
anymore in the game. Instead, psychic abilities are baked into the units themselves. They still work in some ways evocative of how psychic powers work today, but it's not an entire phase that applies in very different ways to different armies.
So, for example, a librarian might have Smite, which would be a ranged shooting attack with a psychic ability.
Yes, with reflections of things like the hazardous nature of using it at a very high level, with the potential to inflict mortal wounds and other things, but still focused as basically a shooting attack. Whereas, some of the psychic powers that might buff a unit or debuff a unit are more baked into an ability within the data sheet as opposed to, an entire phase oriented around that functionality. And it better reflects the sort of strengths and weaknesses of different psychers. Someone like a Primaris psyker within the Astra Militarum might not be as reliable getting off their abilities as Magnus the Red, who's probably not going to fail them in your typical
So Magnus the Red has a ranged psychic attack, but it's like a really good ranged psychic attack. Right?
Absolutely, and
as well as a range of other psychic
abilities
abilities
as well, as opposed to just a generic psychic ability that every other psyker has.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about morale and battle shock there. I think obviously we'll dive into all of these rules in a lot more detail on the Warhammer community site over the coming weeks and months. But I think one of the things
Fewer
I really
strats to
like
remember is a good thing.
The changes is that you don't lose models in morale anymore. You don't have
no,
you don't fail a morale tech and actually just take
morale
units off. It just changes the way that unit interacts with the game.
It does. It works much more like a unit that's been broken up and banged up within a very fast-paced, sort of almost modern firefight, and that those units might not interact as well with rules and with grabbing objectives and other things as they normally would. Additionally, it has much more relevance throughout the game, whereas today you might, kill off most of the models in a unit. They barely pass the morale test. A couple models survive, and they go hide in a corner on an objective all game, and they're basically fine from then on out, even though most of their unit's been devastated. Battle Shock will have less of an impact on models disappearing from the board and more of an impact on testing their metals.
How reliable is
that
unit now in the battlefield?
And once a unit has been damaged,
it sounds like Death Spiral.
Depending upon how they hold themselves together in the face of the ongoing attrition of battlefield.
Should we talk about stratagems a little bit?
There's definitely fewer stratagems to remember. There's many more stratagems.
Yep, index.
That you'll commonly see.
Indexes are
whenever
not happy about indexes.
You always have 6 stratagems available.
Yeah.
And if
at least they're free.
A different variation of that faction, you'll take those 6 stratagems away and replace them with 6 new ones that are for that variation, i.e. Ultramarines versus Imperial Fists or something similar to that effect.
So you have a very common, a list of common stratagems that everyone can use, and that's a little bit bigger than it is now. and then you have a much smaller list of ones that are specific to the faction.
Yep, and they're much more focused on really impactful stratagems you want to use on a regular basis. There's also fewer command points in the game by a significant margin, and so there's much more.
Yeah, Sergeant Hunt, that's me. I'm streaming their audio. It is up as far as it goes on there. I can turn it up a little bit more.
Front of the book as opposed to the armies and the data sheets that are on the tabletop. Also, let's be very clear. We've re-indexed the game. All of the index rules are free and are free on day one, as are all of the core rules to play the game.
So that means on the first day of the new edition, if I've got...
Well, at least they finally learned something. Free rules. It's about damn time.
For my orc, so I can play a game with that army on the first
Yep,
day of
and
the
all
new
your
edition.
army rules as well. Now, there's nothing in particular that's hidden. All of them are free and available on data to play with.
Michael, yeah, I'm not counting on literally anything that we have currently surviving in any shape or form.
You can have actual physical data sheet cards.
So those are a little bit like the War Scroll cards in Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
Like Age of Sigmar.
All of the rules are kind of compacted onto a single card.
Yep, and you no longer necessarily need to bring all of them with you if your army only uses 10 data sheets instead of the 180 you have in Space Marine or however many it is these days. You only need to bring those data sheets with you instead of lugging the whole book, because again, you just have that one open page or a couple of data cards of your actual army rules and stratagems, and then your individual data sheets.
That was a common thing, wasn't it? That we were being told from the community was like.
All right, so here we're gonna look at a data sheet.
But there's a lot of rules to carry around, right? There's
movement, toughness, save, wounds, leadership, whatever that last number is.
Army, but the variety of it in terms of like the choices you have.
And army building.
So it's like AOS.
Back there, I don't know if we'll go back to that one image we had just before this one.
Selling Horus once per turn. Let me get ends. Of course, I went away from it.
When we say it's simplified, it is a much more accessible thing to get into, and we've done a lot of interesting things with the rules to make it more innovative and more immersive to build a diverse army as opposed to just taking only the best units, or on paper the best units. And the way it's been simplified is you take a character, your warlord.
Bob is confident. I'm not so much.
Data sheet, or up to 6 of any basically troop or dedicated transport data sheet, and that's it. And so you need to have a warlord, and then you take up to 3 of most units. Additionally, there's been a great deal of work in putting things like what used to be individual unit stratagems and other abilities into the data sheet itself, and there's a variety of rules that are tailored to work with this type of army building. A good example being that a Space Marine captain might have a really powerful ability, but only one model per turn can use that ability, and so taking a second or third one isn't necessarily a value add. And there's many different units that, instead of there being a stratagem where after your unit shoots and targets a unit, now your other units get a benefit against it, there might be a key unit that provides that buffer benefit to your army. And so working in a combined arms way and leveraging different data sheets into your army in an innovative way is oftentimes, by design, much more impactful and useful and interesting than simply taking 3 of one thing and 3 of the other. So army building has been simplified, but the depth and interest in actually building a diverse force has been a major focus for how the data sheets have been built and how the army rules have been designed.
So every unit basically has got their thing, like they've got the thing that they bring to your army. So
absolutely,
in a way that at the moment you might be relying on stratagems or something to do a particular niche or to fill a particular need. A lot of the time, the unit and the data sheet will allow you to do that. So that's why you take that particular unit.
Much greater focus on your army doing the work of being an army as opposed to how can I take the most optimal units and then use my stratagems or the sort of front of my book to do all of the work.
Yeah, so I think we had an example data sheet that might be worth talking through some of the things because it looks quite a lot different.
Yeah, here we go.
Data sheets are heavily different, and with the decision to index, there's also the opportunity to revamp the way a data sheet looks and works and is designed. Here you can see the new termagants, which is quite cool. They have an ability that focuses.
So it's very similar to.
I guess one of the things before we get too into it is that the data sheet does look quite different, but actually the effect in terms of what it does in the game is not a million miles away from the way that Warhammer 40,000 works today. So
no, it's going to seem very familiar. It's not a move to something like Age of Sigmar where every unit hits or wounds on a fixed number or something like that. Instead, it's still very similar to what you'll remember or recognize from Warhammer 40,000 today. But the ranged weapons and melee weapons and things like that have been moved into their own profile. You'll notice that attacks and ballistic skill and weapon skill and strength.
Yeah, they still exist. They're just attached to the weapon.
Attached to the weapon instead of. That's like halfway between current 40k and current Age of Sigmar.
Chainswords or a Space Marine captain's power fist versus a Space Marine Sergeants, Power Fist, those things can all be somewhat different, and they can reflect the way the individual models work rather than being hard tied to the individual model's attacks or strength characteristics.
So we've got a few questions in the chat about OC. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Objective control. So OC effectively establishes the value that each model in a unit has if it is within range of an objective marker. So a unit of 10, now things like objective secured as a rule, those are gone. Instead, it's reflected with the individual units. Each model may have a different objective control characteristic. So each termagant is worth effectively 2 points if it's within range of an objective. Whereas something that may be
That's going to be a lot of adding.
But isn't really focused on grabbing objectives may only have an OC value of 1.
But it also means things like knights, which
have a
was
much higher
particularly
OC value.
struggled with objective control,
Yep.
can actually now count as lots of. The OC could be quite high, and they could, one grot doesn't beat one knight.
Sergeant Hunt.
It's
So I
definitely
mean, so
improved
far the
the way
data
we design
sheets, like,
models for
they
fun.
look a
And
lot
again,
different, but they're
when you look at those
functionally
that
very
boost
similar
the more
to
we
what we
see
have
from
now.
the
They're
game, there's
just
some
moving
focus
things like
on
ballistic skill and
saying that
strength
this unit
into
having the same
the
data
weapon
values may
instead
be
of
much better
the
objectives, which still
the
remain
data
evolved.
sheet
I
itself.
imagine termagants are going to be
It
relatively cheap.
it will make it
That's probably
easier
one of the
for,
cheapest.
instead of having to do math of like,
Yeah,
oh, well, I
that's
have
one of the most
plus
efficient ways
one,
to fill the load of
strength
defense.
for this weapon, and
Absolutely,
it
which is
gives me
exactly
this
what
much
termagants
AP
tend
or
to do.
whatever.
And
It's
we've done
just,
some things like
power
some
sword,
secondary
strength
reflected
5,
data sheet abilities in a
AP,
very interesting way that shows how
3,
their actual lore
damage
works.
1,
A
whatever,
bunch of work done to look at their
weapon
lore,
skill,
IP,
whatever.
so that the abilities actually
So,
reflected that.
power
In the
fist,
case
weapon
of
skill 4
scuttling
versus 3,
termagants that are very
right?
sneaky,
So, that's
tend to
probably
be
what's going to
difficult to
happen.
pin down. When you get within 9 inches of a unit, the unit gets to move in
So
reaction.
that's very reactive compared to the current edition.
And there's a ton of addition of reactive abilities and reactive stratagems and reactive data sheet abilities into the game so that you're playing a lot more of an interesting game with your opponent during their turn. So there's less phases, and there is a greater investment in abilities and stratagems, things that work during your opponent's turns, so that the game itself is a much more dynamic experience when you play.
Yeah. So we got a couple of people noticing slight differences in the stats. So I think one of the things worth saying is that because this is a re-indexing of the game, we've also had the opportunity to look at the things like durability and strength and how common AP is across the entire game.
There
So
are two major changes that are worth focusing on. That one, in general, lethality is down. That doesn't mean that it's down to a degree that might remind someone of editions many moons ago.
you still don't want to stand out in the open in
You're
front of a
probably
devastator
going to get
squad.
shot in the open if you do stand in the open. But the game is going to be a little bit less lethal than it is today. Cover is going to work a little bit differently. We're going to talk about
AP
all
is
of
a
this
little bit
stuff over
rarer.
time. AP is a little bit lower on average. And then there's also a stratification of strength and toughness when it comes to larger monsters and vehicles. Today is very much the case where you tend to see very few things that are different from, like, for instance, toughness 7.
Yeah, you cap
And
out
so
about 8, don't you? It's
you do,
very, very
7 or
rare
8.
to have anything that's higher than 8.
So if your army has a large amount of access to strength 8 weaponry, strength 7 weaponry, it really is able to wound almost anything in the game pretty reliably, and that's no longer going to be the case. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, Eddie, but there definitely is a much, much higher level of toughness.
Well, there's vehicles that have toughness higher than 10.
Or there's vehicles that have toughness higher than 11.
Well, there you go.
And what that does is it creates a much better stratification of the game so that having dedicated role units to deal with different threats is much more of a real component, as opposed to, gosh, I sure have a lot of strength 8 in this army. I guess I wound everything on 3s or better. And so that kind of brings back not quite the same as armor values back in the day, where certain things couldn't hurt anything, but a much more robust stratification.
Yeah,
of the
so you
different types of
couldn't, for
units.
example, I'm just going to invest heavily in plasma, and that's going to solve the game for me because I've got all the 7 and 8 strength I need.
Yep, because while toughness went up on many units, in many cases strength did not go up on many weapons. So a plasma gun is not.
I'm trying to increase the audio for you guys for them.
Its AP might have even changed downward, whereas the units that
Hopefully
used
that's
to
a little
be wounded
better for
on 3s
them.
by a supercharged plasma gun now may only be wounded on a 5 by them.
Wow, that could be big.
Substantial changes involved there, and of course the data sheets, you're going to see many more of them in the time to come. Eddie, I know we won't talk too much about it so that you can talk all about it.
Yeah, so we will cover loads and loads of the rules over on the community site in the coming weeks and months. A couple of other things that are worth talking about. Boarding actions and boarding patrols from the latest Arcs of Omen books. They are compatible with the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. So if you've been collecting yourself a little 500-point combat patrols of infantry to go diving into Space Hulks, they will absolutely still be able to do that in the new edition.
Yep.
So you can take all those recently constructed armies with you as we go. So that'll be
And
really
all of the boarding patrol rules that are in the Arcs of Omen books are fully compatible. They were designed to be that way so that if you've been investing in those books and the amazing story they've told and the rules themselves, none of those are invalidated by the release of the new edition. They haven't been taken away. It's not a short-term use. They'll be usable well into the future.
Yeah, which is really cool. And then there is another interesting way to play Warhammer 40,000. So Combat Patrol is a new thing in Warhammer 40,000,
No,
a
it's
brand
not.
new way to play the game. And the way that this works is different from the way that Combat Patrol works today. The way it works is that you pitch combat patrols against each other. So the way you choose your army is you pick
It
up any of the
sounds like
combat
it's
patrol
just
boxes that we make,
500
and that is
points
your
against
force.
each other.
You can build it however you want out of that box, and it is balanced and pitched against other combat patrols in a similar way that you might play something like Kill Team, where you have a preset list of units. The rules for Combat Patrol are a little bit different from Warhammer 40,000, so maybe slightly simpler in places. There might be slightly less access to some of the choice, but fundamentally, you are playing Warhammer 40,000 at a very accessible level. And it's really cool for a couple of reasons. One of them is that if you want to start a new army, it gives you a very, very accessible way to try them out, basically. So you don't need to put yourself together 2,000 points worth of models before you can start rolling dice and have a satisfying game. You can play Combat Patrol and have a really good, fun game balanced against lots of other armies.
Rocket Gamer, summer of this year.
Of different forces, so
No specific
you're a kind
day.
of hobby butterfly, I suppose. And you're like, oh, I like playing with Chaos, but I also like my Orcs, and I quite like those new Eldar models that came out, and I like a bit of this. Then you can jump between lots of armies, again, without needing to necessarily collect full forces with Combat Patrol.
Yeah, I think nuance and context are everything for me on this one too, because when we even talk about the differences between Combat Patrol and sort of the full-size 40k game, they're very, very minor. So architecturally, it is the exact same game. And what you might see as a change is because Combat Patrol is meant to be both streamlined and easy to play and also accessible to newer players, you might have a unit that has 2 datasheet abilities, A and B, and they are relatively simple in the Combat
Yeah, I can
Patrol.
drop my mic a little bit.
When it moves up to the full size of 40k, that same datasheet is going to have basically the same abilities, but maybe a little bit more
Hopefully that's
robust, a little
better for
more
you
broad
guys.
sweeping for the full-size game. It's not going to be completely different abilities, and so Combat Patrol is going to very easily navigate into full-size 40k, but it's built and being actively balanced pretty aggressively every day by the studio so that whatever Combat Patrol you want, and the rules for it are free as well, and will evergreen be free, you buy that Combat Patrol, it is built to be played against all of the other Combat Patrols the way it is out of the box.
It's a really, really nice new way of playing 40k. We've got one question that's popping up a lot in the chat I just wanted to answer is there's some questions there about Forge World rules. Forge World models for Warhammer 40,000 will also get free data sheets that you can use in the new edition. So if you've got your Gargantuan Squiggoth, it's a great kit. Why would you not, right?
Of course Eddie brings up the Gargantuan Squiggoth. It's one of the things we talk about all the time.
You can still use it.
So all Forge World rules will be taken care of. They'll be free, of course. Just like all
The
index
guard
rules are on
complaining
day
in
one.
the official chat is
transmission,
hilarious.
Yep.
They're just
It
repeating the
works
same thing over and over again.
100%, which is one of the important things we're really excited about, is a fully functioning army builder. All of the rules available in it again, all of the points free and digital on day one.
Yep.
And so we're fairly excited about all of these new things that are coming to fore that should make the game more accessible and more easily gotten into than ever before. If you play today, you'll be able to play fully with no caveats or asterisks on day one of the new edition.
One of the questions that's popped up quite a lot I just wanted to address is Crusade. So Crusade is absolutely, definitely still a part of Warhammer 40,000.
Very, very big part of it.
There will be some ways to, if you've been crusading for the past 3 years and you've had a good time, you've taken your troops through all sorts of battlefields to the distant corners of the galaxy, there will be some ways to port that army into the new edition, which is pretty cool. There will also be some brand new expansions for Crusade. So, the new edition starts with the 4th Tyrannic War. That might give you a sense of where
Just a little bit of a hint where it's going to go.
Some of the first Crusade expansions might go. But if you enjoy Crusade, and lots of people do, there is still definitely ways to engage with that in the new edition.
It's fair to say that Crusade was one of the big hits of the previous edition, and I don't think it's going anywhere. We're doubling down on it on all fronts, really, whether it's in our event scene with things like the Grand Narrative, whether it's in organized plays, we start to connect more of a narrative element to that, all sort of globally, or whether it's, of course, in the revitalization and release of effectively Crusade 2.0. But we don't want to spoil everything on just the first preview. We'll give Eddie and his team all the time in the world to share all this excitement over the coming weeks to come.
Yeah, so new edition of Warhammer 40,000 will be coming in summer. We have a few weeks and months yet before we get there, so keep checking out warhammercommunity.com. You can sign up to a newsletter to find out.
Yep, Shadizo 10th edition is coming this summer.
New miniatures. We'll talk about all the new rules we've mentioned in loads more detail, all the new lore, everything about it. Follow along on warhammercommunity.com and keep up to date.
We could talk your ear off all night long. Thank you for getting up so early or so late, depending upon your personal time zone, to share this time with us. to share the excitement with us. We've actually done it twice now, once live for Adepticon and once live for all of you. It's been a pleasure. Eddie, thanks
did
for
you have a
having me.
favorite? Obviously, the new Warhammer 40,000 is pretty cool. But did you have like a favorite thing in the other previews we had? 'Cause
I was a big fan of the Lion.
it's pretty cool.
It's always cool to see when a primer comes up. But honestly, I'm going to tell you that the Seraphon, I
Yep.
mean, they scratch an itch for me that connects to everything from, classic movies of yore to owning every single dinosaur book growing up. And it's one of the armies that I'm actually actively collecting and painting now. So I can't pick just one thing. Suffice to say, it's an exciting summer and year to come for Warhammer.
Yeah, it's going to be really good times ahead for every single game system. Basically, is getting treats in the next few months.
Thanks all. We won't keep you up any longer. You can hear more in the future. Eddie, thanks for having me.
No problem. See you guys.
All right, so that was their stream. So yeah, it's pretty late here. It is 12:30 a.m. my time. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you guys for joining me. Really appreciate you staying up with me, chatting with me in the thing. Sorry, Bob couldn't be here. Unfortunately, it was a little too last minute for his family notice for that. But rest assured, he and I will definitely be talking a lot about this in the weeks to come. So keep an eye on out for live streams and new videos and things like that. We're definitely going to be doing a lot of talking about this going forward, a lot to digest. And I will see you guys and talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Have a great evening.